Hello and welcome to another episode of the PropSwap podcast. We are your hosts, Ian Epstein
and Luke Pergande.
And we are also the founders of PropSwap, the first marketplace to buy and sell sports bets. Thank you so much for joining us this week. We've got another great episode for you. We'll be talking about a big same-game parlay pending on Monday Night Football. We will give out our favorite stake or swap picks. But first, we thought we would revisit a story we talked about a couple weeks ago regarding a World Series parlay. A Colorado bettor back at the beginning of the season bet $50 on a Astros to beat the Phillies parlay at 2,500 to 1 odds. As we discussed a couple weeks ago, this was a mistake odds by BetMGM. Most likely it was a typo and should have been 250 to 1 or probably even lower than that. But this Colorado bettor, who a story just came out that we'll talk about, his name is Dylan Jacobs. He bet $50 to win $125,000. Now, as we all know, the Astros went on to win, and so this bettor cashed for that $125,000. But what we want to talk about today is that a story came out that went into the cash out offer that BetMGM gave him prior to Game 1 of the World Series. So Dylan Jacobs, who ironically has an applied math major in college, prior to Game 1 was offered a cash out amount of $85,000, which were actually that would be equivalent to minus 212 odds on the Astros when the Astros were only minus 185 entering Game 1. So BetMGM gave him a cash out offer that was more than the market value of the ticket, which was only $81,000 at the time. Dylan called his brother, who works in finance for the Chicago Blackhawks, and his brother said, "You would be crazy not to take this offer." Jacobs decided to reject the offer, and as it's very well outlined in this Darren Rovell story, he essentially gave up a guaranteed $85,000 to win an extra $40,000. And so, Luke, I will ask you, what were your thoughts when you read this story?
Yeah, I thought that thank goodness we've been friends with Rovell for as long as we have, because he put that sentence in the article, which is totally correct, that Darren said that Jacobs is wagering $85,000 with the potential to profit another $40,000. Like, that's exactly the correct way to describe this scenario. So, happy that Darren's friends with us and he understands the business model, because that's exactly the proper way to describe this scenario. To me, and I'm sure, him and his friends are all like, "Oh my God, you're the smartest guy ever. Like, great job not cashing out." But you're playing Monday morning quarterback by having that take on this story. You're having hindsight bias. Like, result, just, I use like the NFL example, like, just because you went for 2 and you didn't get it, that doesn't mean it was the incorrect decision, right? If the odds say you would get it, 65% of the time, just because you hit the 35% of the time doesn't mean that wasn't the correct decision. Like, and indeed was the correct decision to go for 2. In this case, in my opinion, it was the correct decision to take the $85,000 off a $50 wager. You're wagering that much cash to just profit a little bit more. I didn't understand that, and especially with the Phillies being hot. But just taking out the sports betting side of it, just wagering $85,000 to profit another $40,000 is craziness to me. And then the second point would be, that's like you owning a stock that trades at 185 and someone asking you if you want to sell at 212 and you saying no.
Yeah.
Like, who owns a stock at 185 and someone offers you 212 and says no? Or who owns a house, if you're looking to move you're thinking about moving and your house is worth 185,000 and someone comes in and offers you 212,000 and you say no, like you're a crazy person.
Yeah, I think this goes back to the thing we talk about all the time where, and the irony here is that this was a digital bet, not even a paper ticket, but the bettors, the value, like this original bet, so much more than if they had, than if they got a new bet, right? So like again, he's being offered more than it's worth. So why not, take the cash out offer and then be like, okay, cool, I'm going to go make a $20,000 bet on the Astros, right? Like, but basically he would have lost that, original 2,500 to 1 bet, and he wouldn't want to do that. He also talks about in the article that part of the reason why he decided not to cash out was because they were flying him out for game 1, and like he wanted to, I guess, be in the stands to sweat this bet out. I would love to be a fly on the wall in his brain after game 1, or actually probably even after game 3, when the Phillies were up 2-1, and him thinking, I would kill someone for that same cash out offer. Now again, the thing won, but I think as we're pretty clear on this podcast about like the result should not determine, whether or not it was a smart or bad move. It's just I think crazy to both of us that someone would give up a guaranteed 85,000 to win another potential 40,000, when again there was nothing stopping him from taking some of that 85 and making a new bet. It's just the idea of all or nothing, let it ride, that type of attitude, I think just more times than not ends up in disaster. Like you're going to end up with nothing more than you're going to end up with everything. But I mean, again, kudos to the guy. He turned $50 into 125,000. I think the other lesson of the story is, these sports books will hang mistake lines, right? They are human behind this thing, and he went. So he knew he liked the Phillies as a dark horse, and then he was like, I wanted to match the Phillies with a favorite, and it was a coin flip between the Astros and the Yankees, and he chose the Astros. But point being is that he was diving down in some obscure markets and found a mistake line. So I think that should also be a lesson to everyone out there that you can find some mistakes out there, right? These guys there are humans entering in some of these numbers. So crazy story, and I'm sure we will see more of these as sports betting continues to grow. Something that we see every week, it seems like every Monday, as we record this, there's some crazy parlay that has formed over the weekend. I think a couple weeks ago we talked about a 17-leg parlay that went into the Monday night game, and so today, like I said, as we record this, it's before Monday Night Football. We have yet another crazy parlay story. And this one's actually the smallest amount of legs I could ever imagine for something with crazy odds. A bettor made a $10 5-leg parlay all on alternate rushing props. So FanDuel will allow you to, if let's say someone's over-under rushing yards is 68.5, you can still take over 70, over 80, over 90, over 100, and the further you get away from their true over/under, the better odds you're going to get. So this bettor $10 5-leg parlay on Justin Fields over 110 yards rushing. Again, he's a quarterback at over 110 rushing yards at plus 750. Jeff Wilson over 80 yards at plus 430. Najee Harris over 80 yards at plus 520. Jonathan Taylor over 125 yards plus 680. And the last leg, Monday Night Football, is Miles Sanders over 110 yards plus 520. Now, obviously, the first 4 legs hit. If this bet were to win, the ticket would cash for $135,000. That is odds of over 13,000 to 1. Not 1,300 to 1, but 13,000 to 1 on a $10 bet. And so, we'll just talk about this last leg. Obviously, by the time most people listen to this, the result will be known. as I mentioned, the last leg is Miles Sanders over 110, so which is odds of plus 520, and so the market value on PropSwap is 21,000. And I also another wrinkle to the story is that this bettor did not have a cash out offer in the app. However, it just so happens after this story began to pick up steam on a Twitter account called BR Betting, which is under the Bleacher Report family of accounts. FanDuel magically reached out to this bettor, and there's a screenshot of a direct message where FanDuel is offering him a one-time cash out offer of $21,000. So, Luke, again, we won't talk about what we think is going to happen, but how would you approach this entering Monday Night Football?
Well, if you have, let's say $60,000 sitting around, you can make a hedge bet if the sports book would take under on this alternate prop line. So you'll see on this Twitter thread that everyone is just saying, no, you just go hedge this. You just go hedge this. The problem, like I just said, question number one, do you have 60 grand? That's question number one. If no, then hedging this is basically impossible, right? Because it's going to collect 135. You actually need around 70,000 to hedge this thing properly. So if you don't have $70,000, the next question is, okay, how much can you hedge? But it seems like you can't even make a hedge bet because this is an alternate rushing yards line. It's not their pre-canned over under from Miles Sanders rushing yards. It's an alternate. It's much higher than they traditionally give out. So you can't take the under on this. So like hedging this is basically impossible. You can hedge. You can make a bet on the under of his traditional number. I think it is probably like 80 yards.
68 and a half.
68?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so I was looking at his prior rushing yards throughout the season. 96, 80, 46, 134, 58, 71, 78, 93. So one time of his 9 games so far, he has hit the over. So, for easy numbers, you got a 1 in 9 shot. And the Commanders' defense is okay. It's certainly not world beaters. Chase Young is not playing, I believe, so that helps your cause. So, yeah, I would, and first of all, it's FanDuel reaching out over Twitter. Almost never happens. Like, this is such a marketing ploy, which is fine. Like, we support people selling their bets. So
we're talking about it.
Yeah. So it's definitely a marketing ploy. Like, Bleacher ran the article. I'm sure. What's that?
I said we're here talking about it, right? So obviously, it's marketing that's working. Yep.
So good job by FanDuel noticing that Bleacher's running the article. I'm sure Bleacher reached out. They said, "Hey, do you want to make this, a big story?" They're doing it. So, that is true market value. That does not happen. Want to be crystal clear. We get screenshots all day long since we started this business, tons in 2022, these screenshots of horrific cash out offers. A cash out offer, if they weren't getting national attention to this, I would say would be like $7,000, 1/3 of what the actual market value, which is what it would sell for in PropSwap, which is $21,000. So definitely a marketing ploy. That's fine. We support people selling their sports bet. Hedging is near impossible. Like we said, FanDuel does not offer under and alternate lines. And then if this guy has the capital and he was able to get down, he'd need to come up with $70,000. So good luck with all of that. Basically a near impossible thing to hedge. Of course, we're drinking our own Kool-Aid here, but like you could sell it for $21,000 on PropSwap immediately. We'd find you a buyer for this in an hour, and then go take 17,000 of it and just go rebet Miles Sanders. So you're pocketing 4 by selling it for 21,000. Go take 17,000. I should back up this up because no book's taking 17 grand on this. So there's just so many factors working against you that not enough capital. It's an alternate line. The book's probably not going to take that much of cash on a prop. Like all these guys that are just saying just hedge and fly to Vegas and hedge, like that's laughable. That is not happening. No one's taking that. No book is taking that large of a bet on a Monday Night Football prop. So for all those reasons, sell it and then try to just get down as much as you can. But yeah, FanDuel offering exact market value never happens.
Yeah. And so just on the hedge thing real quick, as we mentioned, there is no under on these alt rushing yards. So you definitely would not want to do under 68.5 and then leave yourself a 50-yard middle where, if he lands, if he gets 85 yards rushing, you lose both bets. I mean, that's a absolute nightmare scenario. The other thing I would mention is that if some book did offer under on 110, if the over is plus 520, usually the under, when you start getting those big plus monies, the gap between the two sides is way larger in the money lines, right? So if the over is plus 520, the under would probably be like minus 800, right? And so a quick back of hand math, you would need $168,000 to win $21,000. So again, I think we can just throw hedging out the window because A, it's not even being offered, and B, even if it was offered, it would cost you way too much money to make the same amount of money that you could by cashing out or selling. But yeah, so one last question. Do you put any credence into the idea that, well, he hit the first four, so clearly this guy is, locked in this week on rushing yard props, or do you think that these are all just complete individual events and him hitting the first four has zero bearing on whether or not the fifth leg's going to hit?
The latter. No one is hot in sports betting. The world is making sports bets. Like, you thinking you're getting hot or getting cold is like a complete random occurrence. Like, if you throw 1,000 darts, you put 500 darts on black and 500 darts on red in the long run. Like, that's just variance. So no, not in the slightest do I think this guy is sharper than others. I'm not saying people can't be successful gamblers, but you just getting hot one week, I do not put any credence into him continuing to get hot on him picking Miles Sanders. He's like a savant, and we had Gabe Rangle on our podcast a couple of weeks ago, the Eagles trainer. Like, yes, he has inside information on the Eagles. So he has told me, yes, the play is, the Eagles game plan this week is absolutely pound Miles Sanders down the Jaguars' throat. That's why he got that. That's why Miles Sanders had that rushing game of 134 yards. Like, that was the game plan. Now, I may be shocked, and he may know Nick Sirianni, but I doubt it. So no, I don't put any inside information or, this guy's a successful gambler. And as I'm reading this Twitter thread, another person makes a great point. If the books did hang an alternate spread of under 110, the odds would be minus 600. So, we talked about, I thought you were going to have 70,000 hedges. No, you're going to need 400,000 to hedge this thing. So there's so many reasons where hedging doesn't make sense. And, this PropSwap, we're 7 years into this thing and people still don't understand why selling makes more sense than hedging, if hedging is even possible. So we'll continue to talk about examples. To be clear, we love small bets to win a lot. I am so ecstatic for this guy. He's in such a great position to turn $10 into that much cash. So we hope he cashes. And then go back to the Houston Philly parlay guy, that brother who works for the Blackhawks obviously lives in Chicago. So maybe we can get him on the podcast one day. I'd love for him or his brother to kind of explain this scenario with that amazing bet. But I am ecstatic that guy turned $50 into 120,000. And here we go again with a guy being able to turn $10 into 135,000. So it's awesome. Couldn't be in more support of these small bets to win a lot. But for all of those reasons, hedging is impossible.
Yep. Yeah, so definitely we'll keep our eyes peeled on that, and I'm sure there will be more stories as the NFL season rolls along. And so now that brings us to our weekly segment, Stake or Swap. First up, we will be discussing the Buffalo Bills coming off their second straight loss. They are still the Super Bowl favorite. And Luke, we'll start with you. Will you be staking or swapping the Bills?
I have been off this team just based on the odds, not necessarily saying this team is not going to win the championship or they don't look elite, but just based on the odds. This team was down to like plus 275 at a point to win the championship. Buffalo was. Now you can still find them at plus 350 at like 7 different sports books. Like, I don't understand why this is one of the lowest odds for any team in like the modern football era. Like, certainly since we've been starting PropSwap 7 years ago and probably 5 years before that. Like, this is a top 3 team in terms of the lowest odds to win the championship in November. Like, we're just past the halfway point. Like, I just don't get it. I think they're a really good team. I think they'd be a 2-point favorite against Kansas City, maybe 3 points if it's in Buffalo. If they play Kansas City looks amazing. I think they'd be, so the Super Bowl's in Phoenix, obviously. If Philadelphia played Buffalo, I think Buffalo would probably be around a 3-point favorite again, like pretty close to a coin flip game. I don't get it. So they've lost now to the Jets, they've lost to the Vikings, and they lost to the Dolphins. And they barely beat the Chiefs by 4. They barely beat the Ravens by 3. And okay, they trounced the Rams and the Titans. Those teams stink. So, and the Steelers. Like, I understand they're an elite football team, but I don't understand why they're plus 350 to win the championship when Kansas City looks great, Philly looks great. I like the Niners. I like the Vikings. Like, they're not as good as Buffalo. I want to be clear. Like, anything can happen in the playoffs and obviously in the Super Bowl. So, like, I think the Vikings and the Niners could beat the Bills in the Super Bowl. Obviously, Minnesota just did it on Sunday, but like, if they did it again in Phoenix, I think they'd have a chance to do it. I also think the Ravens could do it. Like, there's a chance. I would say the Ravens would have like a 35% chance of winning that game. So I don't get it. I don't know why the odds are so low. So I am swapping the Buffalo Bills at plus 350.
Yeah. Look, I'm not in love with the Bills either. However, I will be staking the Bills. I've never seen a favorite in this long have so much variance in different sports books. This is clearly based off of the risk these different books have, because while I see plus 350 at some books, I see plus 450 at other books. And I think plus 450 might be worth a stab solely because of this. If you look at their upcoming schedule, things do get a tad easier, in my opinion. They're home versus the Browns, at Detroit, at New England, and home versus the Jets. Those are their next 4 games. And so I do think they can kind of get right back on track. They can right the ship and get back on track. The defense is solid. Stephon Diggs is great. I mean, Josh Allen is a magician. And I think the Vikings are a really good team. The Jets loss, I think, was maybe, Josh Allen got hurt during that game, and maybe they just were overlooking the Jets. But the Vikings are a good team, and so I don't think you should look at that and be like, that's a bad loss. I mean, they were one bad snap away from winning the game. If they can get that snap off and just get an inch, get the ball off the goal line, then the Bills win the game, and we're not even talking about this. So I would still stake the Bills. Now, come playoff time, gun to my head, if it's Bills Chiefs, I'm probably going to side with Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs. But as we still are in the regular season, I think this is a really, really good regular season team, and I would if they can win these next 4 games or 3 of these next 4 games, I think you'll start to see those odds creep up, and you'll be like, wow, I really I found some good value after they lost 2 in a row. So for those reasons, I am still staking the Buffalo Bills. And then the next team we're going to talk about, which you briefly mentioned, the San Francisco 49ers are currently 10-1 to win the Super Bowl. I will go first. I will be staking the 49ers. And so if you watched the Sunday Night Football game, you will have noticed that Jimmy G had, once again, another bad game. I believe I saw a stat that the 49ers are 10-2 when Jimmy G throws 0 touchdowns. The 49ers are 10-2 record when Jimmy G throws 0 touchdowns. And so you might see that stat as, oh my God, like their quarterback is terrible. I see that stat as these teams can win in multiple ways, because when you get into the playoffs, it's gonna be cold. It's gonna be a defensive minded game, and so you want a team that can win win ugly and win pretty, which we've seen them do both in recent weeks, versus, let's say, like the Dolphins, where it seems like they need to win. The only win with scoring a lot of points, right? And they benefit from the fact they play in South Florida, and it'll be nice weather. But if that team went on the road in the playoffs, I would be very nervous about them being able to put up over 30 like they're doing right now. And so I like a team with good defense, because that travels, right? So the 49ers are currently 5th in points allowed, 1st in yards allowed per game, 9th in points per play, and so it's this defense, first in rushing opponents' rushing yards a game, and so I love this defense. I think Jimmy G, he's a coin flip as to whether or not he'll be good, but he can play some really good games, and so like I said, I just like a team that wins in multiple ways. And then the other thing I'll say, and you'll notice this is a recurring theme for me on Stake or Swap, I'm always kind of looking out to see what the remaining schedule is, because I think that has a lot to do with it. The 49ers have the 7th easiest remaining schedule. I think the Seahawks are going to finally come back down to earth. We saw that a little bit in Germany on Sunday. And so for those reasons, I will be staking the 49ers at 10-1.
Yeah, agreed. I'll also state the 49ers. I think when they got Christian McCaffrey, before they got Christian McCaffrey, I was a fan of the Niners. Now you add Christian McCaffrey in, the odds went from, I think they were around 17-1, 16-1 back then. They moved to around 12-1. Of course, when on Sunday Night Football against the Chargers, odds moved to 10-1. Jimmy G is one of those guys that, for the most part, he's not going to lose you football games. I certainly think back to the infamous interception he threw in the Chiefs-Niners Super Bowl back in 2020. That was unacceptable. That was just such a boneheaded throw. But we're three seasons past that now. So he's improved. He's formidable. Their rushing attack, Elijah Mitchell comes off the IR and rushes for 90 yards on Sunday night. Of course, you've added Christian McCaffrey. Debo can run the ball well. It's a solid defense. Kyle Shanahan is a super smart guy. Of course, he's probably infamous for his, when he was the OC as offensive coordinator of the Falcons team that lost 28-3 when they were leading 28-3, ended up losing to the Patriots in the Super Bowl. But he's a super sharp guy. Great offensive mind, good enough offensive line, good running backs. Debo's a really good receiver. Jimmy G's good enough. He's not elite, but he's good enough. I think a lot of teams would take him on the roster. That's going to win you a few football games, not turn the ball over, make some throws that you need to make. So I agree. I still like the Niners as well. The Eagles, I would definitely pick if they do match up, but the Eagles could lose too. Injuries happen. Eagles might lose a weird second round game and now have to play the Niners. So it's not a lock that Philly's going to get to the NFC Championship at all. So I agree. I'll also stake the Niners.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just seeing a team that is the second best in the conference at still double-digit odds. As you mentioned, they were 16-1 before the trade, down to 12-1, now 10-1. I think we've seen there's been enough sample size with this McCaffrey trade that if he stays healthy, he's going to fit in very, very well into this offense. And to go along with Kittle and Debo and Ayuk, I mean, it's Collinsworth said on the broadcast last night, it's like a Pro Bowl team, really, when we look at all these different offensive stars on the team, minus the quarterback. That's just the small caveat. But like I said, this team has proven that they can win when Jimmy G doesn't play well, right? So they don't live and die by Jimmy G. I think he does just enough, like you said, not to lose the game. And so, yeah, he doesn't have to go hero mode, and he knows that. So I love a team that knows their identity and can win in multiple different ways. So there you have it. 49ers 10-1 currently at sportsbooks to win the Super Bowl. That will do it for this week's episode of the PropSwap podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in. Please make sure to subscribe, leave a rating, and we will talk to you next week.